I just took off an Oculus mask and I had to like readjust myself to a world where I didn't have the power of spells in the palm of my hands. I'm here standing with Chad Dezern of Insomniac Games, who, you and your staff here let me kind of dive into Unspoken, which isn't even released yet, so I kind of feel lucky from that regard. Thanks for talking with us today.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Unspoken. You've obviously you've been working on this for quite a while, but you have some kind of new additions to the game that include kind of ways of making these spells happen, and it was a very transformative kind of immersive experience, just throwing on the goggles and getting used to the controls. But tell me a little bit about these new features.
Sure thing. Well, the Unspoken is all about casting spells with your bare hands with touch controls. And at OC3, for the first time, we're showing off our new gesture spells. So now you can whip up a giant flaming skull in two hands and push it toward your opponent. I think I saw you do that as well.
It was pretty satisfying, I have to say.
Cool. You can do a guard spell and counter what your opponent's doing. You can hold your hands up and drop objects on them or summon fireworks. We really get you moving around, and we've set up the game so that you can keep your focus on your opponent. So it plays out like a real magician's duel, where your opponent casts a spell, but you can counter it with one of your gestures.
Now, I spent my time kind of locked in. I mean, more or less, it was like the demo tutorial scene. I have to imagine that the game, once it comes out, like what is the expansive kind of view of the world that you're doing all of this in? Are there a lot of different scenes that you have the ability to kind of warp to and battle in?
Yeah, that's right. The setting for the game is kind of an urban magic take on real-world Chicago. So in our world, there's this magic place that's just on the periphery of everybody's vision that you can get to as an archmage of this world. So you move to very different urban magic fighting arenas, and you take on other players in PvP magicians duels. But, leading up to that, you can go in single player, you can get trained up, get really good at it before you choose an opponent and take them on.
Sure. How many people can fight each other with magic simultaneously?
We're built around a 1v1 duel. It's very much about two players squaring off right now.
Okay. Now, I mean, what's instrumental to this game in particular, and a large part of what we're seeing here at Oculus Connect 3, is the kind of the inclusion of kind of being able to finally use your hands. I mean, how is it building around these controllers?
It's been fun. We knew we wanted to make a game about magic from the first day we got the controllers in our hands. It just makes so much sense to map like what we all imagine as spell casting with our fingers and hands to this control scheme. We also love the ability to just grab a thing. You can think of something that you do in the real world, and it pretty much works with touch controls. There's a really nice button that's on the grip that just lets you grab stuff. It's got triggers that feel really natural to use. You can do things like point or swipe, like all of these things that you just kind of do when we prompt you without even thinking about buttons become viable in the world.
Right. Now, and obviously there are other solutions out there. HTC Vive, for instance, has its own kind of hand control mechanism. Have you played around with some of the others? How does this compare to the others?
We've played around with others, and there are a lot of great products for sure. We do like the touch controls because of the precision of the tracking and because of the way they map to. I'm in this VR world looking down and seeing this approximation of my real hands. And, when you lift your thumb off the button, you see that happen. And it's hard to explain the experience to people who've never done it, but it's pretty transformative, pretty amazing to look down and kind of know what you're going to get with your hands manipulating that interactive space. It really does feel like a new thing.
Yeah, like I've had a lot of experience primarily because it's the most accessible way of doing VR right now with mobile VR, Gear VR, that sort of stuff. Of course, Google just announced or showed off its Daydream View VR, which adds the touch controller. But I mean, this really takes it to another level to have both of the hands in the experience. I almost couldn't imagine playing this game with just a controller in your hands because it really takes you to that next level.
Cool. We definitely designed this from the ground up for touch controls. We had prototypes in our hands the first day we started prototyping, so we've taken advantage of a lot of what it can do and really try to make the game a lot about focusing on your opponent, really knowing what the other person is doing with their hands in a way that we would not have been able to achieve with any other control scheme.
Excellent. So today you had a couple of announcements for the game itself for people who are very excited to kind of get in on the fun with Unspoken. What were those announcements?
The two big announcements were we announced our launch date, which is December 6th, the day in with touch controllers. And we also announced, this is really cool for us, that the game is bundled, the Unspoken's bundled with touch control pre-orders. So you get it for buying the controllers, and you can jump right into a Magician's Duel.
So basically, if you're planning on getting the touch controllers, you're going to have access, at least at launch, to Unspoken. And you're going to realize what it's like to cast spells and be a pretty kick-butt wizard in the process.
Awesome. That's what we want. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're pretty successful with that. Chad Dezern with Insomniac Games. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us and to allow me to be a wizard today.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot for checking it out.